Hi guys, UK Guns here. So I just recently posted a video about shotguns in the UK, but I realised I left something out, which was about sort of not necessarily calibers, but the types of shot that you can have and what comes under Section 1, what comes under Section 2. And again, I don't want to get too bogged down in the nitty gritties, but I thought I'd give you a quick overview. Like I said in that video, I don't have lots of calibers. I only have two calibers, which is 410 and 12 gauge. So I'm going to use those as examples, but there are other calibers you can own. But the shot sizes and stuff are similar across those. So essentially, you have Section 2 ammunition and you have Section 1 ammunition. So Section 2 ammunition is what is most commonly referred to as birdshot, and to some extent as well game bore, or sometimes referred to as buckshot. And I'll talk about each of those. So birdshot, I've got in these cartridges here. So I've got some slightly shorter cartridges, but I'm going to show you these Fiocchi ones. It's not sponsored or anything along those lines. I wish it were, but it's just I'm using these because these are like clear, so they're really easy to see inside, which is really nice. So you can probably see just inside that shell there, you see all these ball bearings at the top. That's shot, which is where the name shotgun comes from. It's firing all that shot which comes out in a spread. That's birdshot. Okay, and birdshot varies in size, and they're normally numbered from 1 up to 9, and that's just to do with the size of the ball bearings inside. So 1 being the biggest, 9 being the smallest. I think these are 7s usually, something along those lines. 7 or 8s. Oh, 8s. These are 8s. I've got some 7s somewhere. 7.5. But essentially it's to do with the size of shot. So an 8 is 2.2 millimeter. I think 9 is 2. And it goes then up and gets bigger and bigger until eventually you get to something called game bore, or buckshot, as what you might have heard it. I did have some buckshot 12 gauge, but I haven't got them around. But I have got some buckshot 410, and it probably shows better anyway, because the buckshot 12 gauge I've got, you wouldn't be able to see anything, so it'd be a bit pointless. But you can just see inside that shell there. That's not a slug. That is essentially, I think there's 4 or 5 large ball bearings in that. Now, obviously, in a 12 gauge, it would be more. I think it's 9 in game bore or double aught buck. You sometimes might have heard it referred to as 00 buck, whatever you want to call it. But in that, there's I think 9 of the same size as that, pretty much. Buckshot inside the shell, and that's 410 one, but you can get it in 12 gauge as well. That's still Section 2 ammunition. You can buy that on a Section 2 license, because you might use that. You wouldn't use that for clay pigeon shooting. In fact, most grounds will ban buckshot. You're only going to use birdshot, and even then it will be usually limited to something like 28 grams, and then between sort of 7 and 9 or something along those lines, because you don't want the shot going too far and those kinds of things. So for clay pigeon shooting and most or a lot of hunting applications, like with birds and stuff, you're using birdshot. But for bigger game, which is why it's often referred to as game bore, you need something with a bit more punch, and that's where buckshot or game bore comes into play. So this should be for taking down larger quarry, essentially. So it's more of a hunting sort of round, but you can buy it on a Section 2 shotgun certificate. But you can go bigger still, and that's where we get into something called slug. And what slug is essentially, it's a single solid lead projectile. So it's just one piece of lead. And usually they're rifled, because obviously a shotgun barrel isn't rifled, but the slug is rifled, and that gives it some spin, and essentially works similar to like a rifle bullet. Obviously, it's ballistically very different, and it's not travelling at quite the same speeds, but it's still a big chunk of lead travelling very, very fast. That is Section 1 ammunition, so it comes on a Section 1 firearms licence. So you can't buy those on a regular shotgun certificate, because these are more specific. So again, this is another one that I've got, slug, but it's clear, so you can see it a little bit better. So this is the solid projectile there, and you can probably just make out those grooves on the side there as I turn it. That's the rifling. So that is what basically helps to give it some spin and stabilise it in flight, essentially. And slug shot is usually used for things like practical shotgun, target shotgun. You can use it for shooting large quarry, pretty large quarry. If you use it on anything small, it's gonna there'll be nothing left. It packs a lot of punch, but obviously it doesn't travel super far because it's quite heavy and things. But it does pack a big punch. But like I say, that's Section 1 ammunition, so you'll have a limited quantity of how many of those you can have. It'll be specified on your license, and they have to be stored. This is the important thing. Section 1 ammunition, slug, has to be stored in the same way as any other Section 1 ammunition, so stored away in a safe, just like rifle ammunition, those kinds of things. Whereas Section 2 ammunition technically doesn't. Now, best practice is it is, and a lot of shotguns cabinets will have a little safe at the top where you can fit a few boxes of shotgun ammunition. But as you can see, that's a big box there, and that's just 25 rounds. So if you shoot regularly, you might have several hundred rounds at home. You're going to run out of space very, very quickly to store it all. So the law doesn't require you to store Section 2 ammunition in a safe. Obviously, best practice is that you would. But ideally, it just needs to be somewhere safe out the way. Could be in a locked cupboard or just somewhere where only you have access to it and it's not out on display. Certainly shouldn't be left on your kitchen side or something along those lines. But Section 2 ammunition, the storage of it is a little bit more relaxed compared to Section 1 ammunition, which must be stored in a safe, and it has to conform to certain standards as well. So that's about it really. I've also got some smaller 410s here. So these are birdshot 410s. These are really old rounds. Just gives you a bit of an idea. So that's a buckshot one. That's a birdshot 410 for that little single barrel Adler that I've got. You may have seen that. And then the 12 gauge, they come in all different. I'm not going to go into all the different shot sizes and weights and all the rest of it because it will be boring, and frankly I don't know all of them anyway. But essentially you get your sort of standard birdshot loads, which you can see, you know, it's about a centimetre or so brass there, and then you get heavier, more powerful rounds like this. So this is a 0 size shot, so the shot in here is pretty big. It's basically the last sort of bird shot before you get into the game ball buckshot sort of area, and you can see the brass is much higher, probably more than double. So they call that high brass. Very powerful round. This is a 50-gram shell versus 28s. This is a very powerful round. Has a lot of kick, but this is a hunting round. It's not used for clays or anything along those lines. That's a hunting round. So, brief introduction to shotgun ammunition in the UK. Hope you found that useful or helpful in some way. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.